All right. My apologies. We're starting to record a little bit late, but I'll get you guys up to speed as soon as you guys give me an answer. So now it says I'm on the homepage. Okay. Think like it should be on the homepage at this point. Did it happen? Is it on the homepage?
I think it's not homepage yet.
Right. So now, yeah, so basically as a QA engineer, when we do BDD and behavior-driven development or write our tests in this manner, it's our responsibility to make sure that whatever the plain English says, we fulfill that in code when we write our step definition. Okay, so now that it says I'm on the home page, what I want to do is that I'm going to say driver.get, right? And it will take me directly to the home page, right? So I will do that. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this and done, right? And so now we are on the home page. Okay, so let's see if it works first, and then we will go from there. So these two do not have definition, so we'll see what happens if we run it real quick. Okay, run scenario. Okay, step definition, something. Okay, let's see. The step definition. So even for I am on the home page is not being found. So we have to go ahead and edit the configuration, guys. So I'll go ahead and do edit configuration, and let's finish that 1 second. Run edit configuration. I'll teach you guys what we are doing. So Java Cucumber, of course, we have to provide the glue, meaning where exactly our step definition is. So the step definition is actually in the source this. So this is where the definition should be. All right, and then code coverage, logs, no, okay. Apply, okay. And then go ahead and run it one more time just to see what's the deal. So source with this, okay. Warning, consider replacing glue path with this, with nothing, what, okay. Okay, 1 second. Edit. So second, I'm gonna just quickly look what we're missing. Cucumber, IntelliJ, right? Enable Cucumber support in IntelliJ because we're using IntelliJ after all, right? So we just have to make sure that we did not miss anything when we get the IntelliJ. So notice like the scope we're missing, and we need to have also this too, right? Not only we have to have this, but we also have to have this, okay? So I'm gonna need both, okay? So actually I'm gonna just need this, but as long as we apply scope, it should be fine. But I'm gonna go ahead and take this for now, and then we'll upgrade the version later when things are working fine. So it's always good to go and make sure that you have the right things. And let's see, go ahead and update this. Okay, and then since it's updated, I'm gonna go and edit my this for now, apply, okay, and then go ahead and run this one more time. This time it should, because we applied the scope, so it should be fine. All right, so it seems like it is doing its job, and let's just wait. Okay, so it opened up and go into Guru new tours. This is a testing application, so don't worry. So now that it went there, right? Notice it's complaining about it is complaining about 7 and 8, okay? And it says that, hey, you don't have code for these two. So what do you want me to do? So here, this is called dry run, because anytime it gives you suggestion, okay, here you can implement, you see? It's a much nicer interface to say, okay, one scenario and one undefined. So it's saying that these two steps do not have any code associated with them. So whenever you see it says you can implement missing steps, don't panic and give up. All that means is that you need to implement it, right? You need to basically write code behind these steps. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these steps from here. Last time you guys saw that I just did it from here, okay? So there's two ways to do it. I can click and create step, or I can just go ahead and copy it from this console because it's essentially the same thing. So now I'm going to paste it here. So now notice like I got the both of them here, and I can import these two when and then we're going to write some code. So where it says when I enter valid username and password. So so in this case, let's say something 1, 2, 3 submit. Let's see if it logs me in. It doesn't, right? So register user can sign in. So because we're not registered, so I may just register myself first and then go from there. So let's see. So now TEST 1, 2, 3, right? Test 1, 2, 3. I hope it saves it, right? I don't know. Test.com. Let's see. I hope it saves it. Yeah, most likely it will not, but let's see. Okay, see it doesn't. So you know, test.com, test 1, 2, 3. Login successful. Okay, it did save it. So I got the login username and password, which is good. So now that we have this, I will now see where it says valid username and password. How do I know it's valid? Because I just created and it's working. And we tested it manually to make sure it works. So the next thing is I can say driver dot find something. So driver dot find element. And I can say buy something dot this. So if I go back to the home page real quick, and actually, I'm going to go directly to login page. So that way we don't have to worry about clicking on the link or anything like that. So if we are here, all I have to do is inspect, and I can go ahead and see the name is going to be username. So I can, now I said the name. Okay, and then I will go ahead and enter username dot send keys. You guys remember these things, right? We did this. So now here I have to enter my username. So juro@test.com, right? That was the username. And then now I will do the password. And I'll do the password. And password is basically also password, right? So name is just password. So I'll just go ahead and I'll say my password was test123, right? That was it. Once this is done, I want to click on the submit button. So the next thing is I will find this button and it says it has a name called submit. So I'll go ahead and take this. Okay, and I'm going to change the name. And it might be fast for you right now, right? So feel free to ask questions if you don't understand. Okay, so now we clicked on submit also using name. And then after that, we want to see if I enter, let's say test 1, 2, 3. So then if we want to see this login successful, so this is our expected result. So I'll go ahead and remove this. I'm going to say expected result is equal to this. And okay, this, what am I missing, guys, in Java here? What am I missing? Anybody?
Data type.
Exactly, data type, right? So I gotta say string, and then I gotta say string here too, because this is two different variables. So now I'm gonna find element, and all I have to do is that by dot, and then I have to get this, right? So I have to find the locator for this, and notice it's H3. Okay, so I want to see how many H3s are in here on this page. Okay, so 2 H3s in there, right? So that means I cannot just simply use H3. So I can say td.h3 should be fine. So td more than H3, and that's just one. Okay, one of one. So I can actually use this. Now, if you want to make your life easy, you can also right click and say, I want to copy the locator, and it will be same thing. Okay, but it's huge, right? So I will probably teach you guys how to create your own H3, and then I see it's very simple and easy. So now I'm going to say CSS locator. That's what I created just now. And this is the one that I want to get. And I'm going to say get text. Now get text will work if this is an actual text. If this is not a text, then it will not work. So seems like this is a text, so it will work. It will work basically. So now the next thing I can say is assert. And remember assert using JUnit or testng, I guess JUnit at this point. because this is the framework where we didn't really. So the first one was actual result, I believe, and then the second one is expected result. Okay, that's it. So you put an assertion to make sure it works properly. So it'll get the actual text from the website, and if something happens and these texts change in the future in the website, then it'll let you know that, hey, something is not working. So notice your test is completed just now. I can right click and run it, and let's see. Okay, enter and test successful, and let's see. And that's it, it passed, right? One scenario. So you do see a little bit more information now. Now you can see scenario name, scenario, how many steps the scenario has, also how long it took. It took 6 seconds to pass this test. Okay. Now, the reason why you want to use, Cucumber is because obviously it looks nice, but then I can also have extra reusability. So what if I want to enter username and password directly from here? I can also do that, right? So I can create another step. So let's create another one. Okay, and I can say this could be scenario outline, but we will say I enter instead of valid. I can say I enter this as a username. Okay, so this is this username, and then password could be this. Okay, the next thing I need to do is create step definition to my steps. So this is where it is. And notice we got 2 arguments this time. We got the argument 1, argument 0. So I'm going to say the first one was a username, and the second one was actually password, right? So you can name them however you want. Then I will go ahead and copy this, because again, this is essentially what we're doing. I will say username is going to be here, right? And password is going to be here, and that's it. Now my steps is ready to go. And notice, like, now I can say at test.com, and then test 1, 2, 3, right? Now this is the same exact test. This test and this test is identical, right? The only difference is we made a step to take some parameters, okay? So now not only that our test is reusable, but it can also reuse this information, because now you can say, what if I have more than one user? I can say scenario outline, and I can create a examples table, right? In here, I can say I would like to pass on the information. So username and passwords, I can say username, and then password is going to be password. You're just naming the table header at this point because you are creating a table header, right? So once you do that, okay, and then the first thing you want to do is enter the value. See, the first value, and the second one was this. This is a valid value. The second, and then I can enter as many as user as I want to. So now let's say, now I can change these values, right? They're all identical, right? So let's say password is not good, right? So invalid, whatever, 1, 2, 3. This is actually in purpose, and then username is fine. So we're trying 3 login attempt using, so basically username is valid, and then all 3 scenario have invalid password, right? Because this one, we know that it works. So now here, I'm going to hook it up so it will work with it. And then all I have to say is this. I think I'm missing my list right there. And then I will go ahead and do password, right? So if I run this, how many times it will run, guys? Tell me if I run this. Okay, I didn't hear anybody saying anything. So I know Zinnia just unmuted. So you have any answer for this?
As the scenario is twice, it will run twice. But in the second time, it will run for the every username and password.
So it will obviously, like, okay, let's assume this is not there. So it's already, I commented out.
Okay,
Now
then
tell
it
me.
will run 1, 2, 3, 4 times.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it will run 4 times because we're using scenario outline and we have information user. The information is different every time it runs. So each row is a scenario basically. So it runs once for each row. So I'm going to run it to show you guys what's really happening here. So that's the first time. Go ahead and log in. Done. The second time. Okay. And it will refresh, enter username. You see, it wasn't able to log in, right? And it failed. So we're seeing, we will see 3 test fails, right? At this point. That is the expectation at this point. So, all right. So I think it's finished. So notice that you have 4 scenarios, 3 failed and 1 passed, just like that, right? Now, so now if you can see that the use case, or at least when you can use this scenario outline, make yourself more and more efficient on writing test cases. Here, let's just reassess because I went real fast, okay? Anyone here that one will explain what's going on here. And then top of that, like, I guess the question here, if this test looks much, much better than what we did so far, right? And I did nothing but just added a new library to our Maven. So right here, that's the only thing I added. And after that, I was able to create feature file, which starts, ends with .feature. And then I was able to just write plain English. And no other changes was needed in my framework. So this was like just an additional layer to the framework. Now, any question, guys?
No, clear.
Okay, and everybody understands. Okay, because you're going to be doing a homework for this. All right, because like I said, if you guys want to ask questions, that will be, this is going to be the time, because, we're going to want to do a larger homework for, because it's going to be 2 weeks off, right? So make sure you ask the questions. So you got that. Now let's see. Like, for example, right? So when you go into the homepage right here, notice we have the code, right? Then if you go into this method right here, this step, right, it has string and string as a parameter. You see the information like username and password, nowhere in these steps. In this step, there is no username and password whatsoever. It does have only username and password as a variable. But then the username and password goes from here. How is that even possible? So I'm surprised to not seeing a question from you guys on this one. So I guess you guys understand. If you don't, like I said, this is being passed on to the variables. There's multi-layer of variables here at this point, right? So you got the string. We're saying that whatever is in here, right, it'll be a string, and whatever is in here, it'll be a string. And then this string goes represent those 2 variable, and these 2 variable pre-fills the username. And now these variables then finally come from the actual test itself by this, right? And can I use this here too? Yes, I can. I can actually use this here, but now because it's not a scenario outline, I have to provide the information directly here, right? So this is just a single scenario. I'll go ahead and paste this. And if I run this now, it will work the same exact way, guys. Let's see. That's it, right? Thanks for login, right? So we're able to now do the same exact thing, and we didn't have to, okay, it's running both of them actually. So I should have just run only one. Now, all right, and then 3 tests will fail. So it's going to be like 2 tests passes and then 3 tests fails, because including this one. But I'm going to go ahead and stop that. Let's see if it did. Okay, there we go. 5 total tests, 3 failed and 2 passed. and 12, and it took 29 seconds total, right? So it is quite fast, relatively, right? Any question? Do you guys want me to write another test and kind of go over? Isn't it simple? Does it look simple to you guys? Okay, let's see. Evelina, does it look simple and easy? But most importantly, do you like this, right? Because this is compared to what you did before.
The truth, I'm completely lost like 2 classes ago.
Okay.
Can we see one more if we could possibly?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, I'm gonna show you one more. But I'm just trying to understand one thing is that do you guys like this better than the last two framework that we did? We had a JUnit and test and G. And personally, would you appreciate this framework versus the other if you work in an environment?
I'll appreciate this one and the cucumber.
Mm-hmm. And it's because
yeah,
it's because
much
like
easier
it's just
to
neat,
read.
right?
It's much easier to
Mhm.
read, and it's very directly go to the point.
Exactly. Not only that it goes to the point, but also think about all the page object. You guys remember page object, right? Page object model. Here, we can still apply page object, and we have the additional layer of parameterization, right? So not only that we can reuse our code internally, just like creating method, but we can also reuse the steps. So what happens typically if you join a team? Let's say, right, I'm gonna give you guys a real case situation, right? You join a team and they ask you on the second day, can you write some automated tests? You can literally go into each and every single feature and collect which step do you need. So you're writing a new test. You're gonna say, first of all, you're gonna say scenario. And now you know that in your, so let's say this is an invalid test. So verify invalid username does not log in a user, for example. And this is something that your boss gave you. So now, which step here we can reuse if you're working under the same company? Like, would you write it everything from scratch, or what's the deal, right? So in this case, okay, you know what? In order for me to even try login, I have to be in the home page, right? So I can just say this, copy this first line. Okay, so you already have the first line, you don't have to write anything. Then in order for you to even try the wrong username and password, you can say, okay, this is already done. So I'm gonna say something like this, wrong user@gmail.com, for example, and then wrong password. So let's say wrong EWD, right? So you have this. The only thing you have to write is then I should not be logged in. That's it. So now all you have to do is create a step for this. And then it could be as easy as that, right? So if you're not logged in, what's happening? Like let's say, if I click on enter and it says, welcome to Mercury, enter username. So if you do see information like this, that means you're not logged in. So if you even see username field is there, that means you're not logged in, right? If the username field is still on the page, that means you haven't moved on to the home page and you're not logged in. So you can simply just say this, expect, oh, not expect, sorry, assert dot assert. Okay, so first of all, you can just say driver dot find element, and you can actually go ahead and say username, right? So you can actually go ahead and do this guy right there. If this guy exists, right? So let's say verify element dot, let's see, let me see, wait for, we don't want to say wait. Exist maybe, no. Present, no. Okay, that's fine. I can say, let's see, what are options that I have, right? Get attribute, get values. Is displayed, okay, there we go, okay. Is displayed, if that is there, right, then I know that I'm not logged in. So I can say Boolean, right? Why does it Boolean? Is because it's displayed as a return, Boolean return. How do I know? All I have to do is a dot is, okay, let me just fix this first and then show you guys for a second. Is displayed, look, it's a Boolean result, okay? And that's it. That's how I know it's gonna give me a Boolean return. So I have to say Boolean as a data type, and I can say that username. Okay, I'm just creating a new variable username. That's it. Now, if I say assert dot assert, okay, let's see, assert dot, oh, A is capital, okay, A is assert is right there, dot assert. I'm gonna find something else rather. So assert false basically. Assert false. So you don't want to see this. So as long as this user name is false, sorry, this should be true. So if it's there, that means your test is passing. Because why? Because username is still there. That means your wrong password. You see, I should not be logged in. So your wrong password did not log you in. So if I run it, I'm going to go ahead and put this to the side. I'm going to just run this test and see how that worked, if that works at all. Okay, and then so it's going to enter some wrong stuff and boom. So let's see. And the test passed because obviously it did find this username still there, right? So, and that's the, let me see, I'm going to have to delete some of these browsers that is being created like this. Look at this. So that's why when you write your test, you have to have cleanup, right? Cleanup will go ahead and delete the browser that it creates. For learning purposes, I'm not doing that because we need to see what happens, right? Okay, now let me just finish with these. It's gonna freeze my computer. Okay. Let me just go ahead and enable those tests. So you guys understood, right? I joined the company. They asked me to write a test. I was able to reuse most of it except for just one thing. This guy right here, I just kind of like get some idea from what I see, right? I was able to just pull some code here and there and be able to write my step to make sure that I am not logged in. And that's it. Simple and easy is that. So just like that, if the company has enough test cases written in BDD, so if they wrote, let's say, 300 to 400 test cases so far, the chances of you writing a new line of code is almost like, in 90% of the time, you'll be able to just go ahead and reuse code and write your tests, reuse the steps basically. So these are reusable steps that you can rearrange, call them wherever you want to call them. And the most important thing is it's in plain English, so you can actually read and understand what you need. If you want to see the code behind it, you can right click and you can say show context, or you can do Command B or Control B if you're a Windows user to see the code. Okay, so that's why I was able to like jump between this like real quick like this, right? It's because of the shortcut. In a real world situation, and that's why I try to push everybody to work in BDD and Cucumber, and it's because you're able to reuse 80 to 90% of the existing steps to write your test. So you don't have a lot of code to write. But most importantly, you have to write code if the code already exists, right? What is the best practices? Does that mean you're just stealing code? Does that mean that you're not doing the work? You're just going off of your coworkers and just grabbing whatever you need? What do you guys think? Any opinion, personal opinion? All right. So when you reuse code, it is pretty much encouraged, right? Because if you don't reuse code, then you're creating more problems for the future. Okay, if it's already there, nobody wants you to create it again. So if you're building a house and somebody already built a bathroom, and then on the requirement or whatever on the let's say documentation, it says it should have 3 bathrooms. Without looking, you shouldn't build another bathroom, right? If it already has it, right? Somebody, your coworker already did that for you, right? All you have to just see if it's there or not, right? So same thing. I guess this example wasn't a good one, but the idea is that we don't duplicate code. We don't want to copy and paste and act like this is our code. What we want to do is that if this exists and it actually is working fine, we just want to go ahead and copy the step definition, copy the step and use the step. So when you copy this step and use it in your test, you're not copying anything. You're not really, stealing code, right? Because this was created in this way, so that way people can reuse. That was the whole purpose. So you should never be afraid to say, okay, I'm going to go and look into the next 10 different test cases that you have, and then create a test case by understanding what they do. And that's totally normal. So that's why the focus on the BDD needs to be there. So I'm going to create another test case, sorry, another. So this time I'm going to choose this because, again, your IntelliJ, if it does have the substep feature, that means you already configured your Cucumber properly. The other thing you want to keep in mind is that you can always create a file. As long as the file has .feature at the end, it will work, right? So I can just say Cucumber.feature and it'll work, or like, let's say my test.feature and it'll work. You see, it's just working fine. So just keep that in mind. You can create it yourself, or if you happen to have your feature or Cucumber actually working, then you can do it this way. So now when I created the first feature and it is empty, but remember, before we even get to this point, first thing we had to make sure is that we have the Cucumber is installed in our system by putting the Maven repository. We have 6.1.1, so I don't mind if you have to use this. I don't want to upgrade it because it comes with so many issues. Cucumber actually needs to be compatible with your Selenium. So for any reason, if your Selenium is like older, then Cucumber will not work with the, latest Cucumber will not work with the older version of Selenium. So that could be one reason why I was seeing issues on the last class. The other thing is that make sure that Cucumber has the scope of test. So that way it knows exactly, where the features are and things like that, where the step definition is, okay? Other than that, once you have this thing right here, just this, then you're good to go. You can now write your feature file. Now, again, any file with .feature extension will be fine. And then you can start to write your test case. So remember, we talked about your BA will give you, step definition, sorry, the acceptance criteria. So you can literally copy the acceptance criteria and paste it into your feature and then start to write the code, because that's what you need to write in order to make your code to work. And that's how it's going to be. So the first thing, again, is going to be feature, and we're doing it all over again with a brand new, file. So in the feature file, you have to make sure that the feature has some sort of description. It's like an objective. It's like overall what you are about to do. This has no meaning in terms of code. This does not execute any code. So in here, I can say something like this: as a user, I would, as a user of Google, for example, I would like to search for any keyword I wish in order to make most out of my, like, I don't know, Google experience, whatever, something. I mean, I'm just writing whatever I can, but this is just basically a description of what is about to happen, right? A feature on this level, this is like an introduction at this point, right? Now, a feature file can contain more than one scenario. So let's say scenario 1, right? Verify user can search a keyword, for example, just a single keyword, right? Then you have another scenario, right? Let's say verify if user searches, and I'm just doing search chats, right? Search a keyword that is not in the index. So you know how Google works, right? It indexes everything, correct? It goes through millions and billions of websites and indexes everything, and then it knows what to give you when you search for it, right? So now I'm going to say a keyword that does not belong to index. So we'll have to come up with a keyword that is not there in the whole Google to kind of test that. So the second scenario is basically we want to verify if it's not there, then it should not display any results, right? So how do you even know Google works? Imagine like it gives you results regardless. Then how do you actually quantify and kind of draw the line to say Google search works properly or not, right? So this one, you will find a keyword that will search with, which will not return any information, and that's how we're going to be able to verify that. So see results, right? And lastly, I'm going to create another, it's going to be a scenario outline, and I'm going to say verify if user can search for, like, let's say 1,000 keywords, right? And gets result, right? So now it's a huge number, right? So we'll go ahead and put this huge number. We'll probably grab it from online somewhere, create our test. And this is going to be our keywords. So we're going to take it from here, keyword. And then we're going to say keyword, right? So each keyword will be here, okay? So we're going to just go ahead and add all of our keywords here, and then it will run it. So all of them needs the keyword to describe the test itself. So given is the keyword we can use, when is the keyword we can use, and then, right? So these are logical, obviously. I can just say simply given, right? And it'll be fine. It doesn't change any outcome with your code because it's code you're writing separately. I can say given and when and then, okay? So it's really depends on your need. If you don't need the and, if you don't need the given, obviously you have to make sure that you're writing it in a way. So in this case, same thing, given, when, and then, right? So we got 3 different scenarios for Google search, and the feature is basically going into Google and doing a feature, I guess, like Google search feature testing. Now, since we're writing feature file because we're doing BDD, obviously that is, the keyword we're using as a feature. But I'm saying a lot about the feature, but again, when we write code or when we write our test in BDD, we create a feature file. Notice it's called .feature. It's no longer Java. The feature then will include feature, which you just basically the introduction of what's going to happen. And then you write multiple scenarios or whatever scenarios that you need. So if you have, let's say, just like I think earlier, just like Zinnia explained the scenarios for login, you can have as many scenarios you want. So you want to isolate each scenario to its own scenario keyword. And then you want to describe the scenario using given, when, and then, okay? Now that I did that already, now I'm going to fill that in plain English. So given I am on the Google home page, for example, right? When I enter something, keyword, right? Okay, so I don't know what that something is. Then I should see a result, right? So result can be like anything more than 0 page showing. It could be something like that. So now let's create ourselves the steps, okay? Create a sub definition. So I'm gonna put it into the same one, so we're fine. I'm gonna say driver dot get, right? In this case, and I can say something like this. Obviously, string. I can put it into a string if I want to, but really, you know, what is needed. So I'm gonna go ahead and type this in here real quick. Google.com. Now I'm gonna go ahead and paste it here. Guys, I know it's fast, so pause and play later on if you are creating the same exact framework and be able to write your test. Okay, so now that it says I'm on the Google homepage, this fulfills my need, okay, because that's where we are. So first step is done, okay? So I'm gonna go into this, and the second one is I enter, right? So create step definition, this. So it says I enter, I'm gonna say keyword just to give it a nice name. And then I will say driver, do something for me, find element. Okay, and we remember we created this test last time as well, and it wasn't working, but let's see. We go into that and it does happen to have a name, which is called Q. Okay, so it's not something that I already know. Okay, so I'm gonna say name and then it's gonna be Q, okay? Then I'm gonna say send keys. I wanna enter something there, so I'm gonna say enter keyword. Okay, whatever keyword that I'm gonna give you later on. After that, I want to do the same thing again, but send keys with saying keys.enter, so I can go ahead and simulate the button enter from your keyboard. Okay, once that is done, if I go back in here, I see that this is ready to go. So I can say I want to find MacBook, right? And that's the MacBook Pro maybe, right? And I should see results. That's the next one. But before we go into this, let's comment this out so it doesn't really give me a problem. I'm going to run this real quick to show you guys at least up until here is working. And then we go into, okay, so let's see what's the deal. It's a Selenium, blah, 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 right? Or WebDriver.get string this because driver this, whatever is the case, right? Driver is null, totally understandable, right? Driver is upset. So let's go fix that real quick. Okay, so the thing is that what's happening here is that we have the driver, but that unless these steps runs, the driver is never created because the driver gets assignment right here. That's where the problem is, right? So I can actually move that out of it here. And I believe, let's see. Make cucumber return void. I do have to do that actually. Okay. Okay. The easiest thing for now I can do is, one second, sorry. Okay, so the easiest thing I can do right now, because it's a completely separate test, and in real world, you're not gonna see this kind of problem because, okay. So then it's not duplication, right? Because these step, these step right here only gonna run once per test. Okay, so it's not duplication at all. So the way that I wrote just now, it's fine, even for real world situation, but we want to make them into a method like the way that we do it for another framework, right? So we can call it whenever we need. So now if I run this test and see what happens, and I just want to see if it actually does the Google search. And if it does, then we will move on to the next stage and MacBook Pro, and it search for it. So notice like it has this many number. So as long as it has some value here, like maybe like over 1 million, I would say this keyword is working. Is that agreeable? This is something that we can agree, or we can say if MacBook Pro exists somewhere on this page, then it worked. How is that? Is that also agreeable? Which one you guys want to stick to? You want to stick to this number, or you want to stick to like any keyword? MacBook Pro keyword, if it's there, then it's fine. And this decision has to come from the QA engineers, right? Because you are the one who's writing test. So which one do you think you want to choose?
Number.
Number, right? At least number will be more reliable, because if there is no result, then we should see this as 0. So let's see some garbage value. Okay, enter. What do you have here? 0, right? And this guy. So you can say you're going to validate this because this specific keyword should not return a value. But anyway, MacBook Pro has huge amount of numbers. So not only that we have to use double, right? Because integer is not enough. What is the limit for integer? Okay, limit for integer is this, that's it, right? And it's not a lot. It's not a lot, you see? Look how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But if you go back in here, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's when it's gonna fail. So we have to make sure that we are grabbing this number and we're doing something with it. So now this step where we might do a little bit of extra work because this requires a lot of thinking and calculation, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and grab this first. Okay, we want to grab the whole thing, right? Because we're grabbing it from here. So I'm going to say driver dot find element. I'm going to say by something. I don't know what that something is. So I'm going to go and do a search to see what is this belongs to. So this is ID. It has an ID. Great. Okay. So since it has a friendly ID, I'm going to use the friendly ID. And we talked about it, right? If it's there, then why not? Why do you want to make your life more complicated? Okay, so I use the ID and I'm going to say get something, get, I don't know, get text maybe. Element by ID. Okay, let's see. Let's see if this is a text or not. So this is actually yeah, it's a text, right? So it should return me this only, this, okay? So now I can say, find da. So in this case, this is not elements, this is element. That's where the problem was. Okay. And then I can say get text. Okay, and then before I can write the next line, I wanna basically find out what is the return for this. Results is equal to this. I just want to see, you know, like what it is that is displaying. So I can see it here, so I can deal with it, right? So I can say, system dot out dot println, right? You guys forgot about this, right? It's been a while. I'll go ahead and write this. And then if I run this, what's going to happen, right? So let's go ahead and run it real quick. And
Ruby, can you make your screen please little bigger? It's hard to see.
okay, I can do that. Oh, a second, I just have to. How about now?
Yeah, it's good now. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so now you guys can see that we printed this value right here. It's about 1.6 blah 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 blah, right? So now that we printed, that means we're able to grab that number. I will now, what I would like to do is that I would like to remove these commas so we can actually treat that as a number. But before I do that, I want to basically remove this string, and this string, right? So anybody have an idea about what kind of like Java code I can write to go ahead and do that?
Using the trim method, maybe.
So trim will not remove the
Oh,
text, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna remove, trim is for removing white space left and right. So I can say something like this, right? Result dot, let's say first I'm gonna do a split, okay? Result dot split, and I'm gonna say I wanna split wherever I see a space, okay? That's what I wanna do, that's it. Now this guy returns what? This guy actually returns an array, right? But now if I say split this into wherever there's a space, that means it's gonna split here and it's gonna split here, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so then if I say I want this one, so if it is splits and it puts it into an array, and I say I want this guy, because there's 3 splits now because of the space, right? So then if I say I want this, what is the index value?
Index value is 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 4.
So you're saying you want to split it in the space, right? So now you have a single space here and single space here. Therefore, it's going to split into 1, 2, and 3, right? It's going to do 3 slices. I want this slice. What is the index value for this?
0, 1.
It's a 1, right? So now I can do something like this. I want 1, right? But then introduction local variable, blah, blah. Okay, so introduce, I have to do a variable here. So now let me just go ahead and store this information first somewhere in a variable, right? So I can say string, because we're still going to treat them as a string, right? String this, and I can say split it, as we like to do. Split it is equal to, or maybe cleaned up or something like that, right? And now I can go ahead and say split it dot, no, split it, and I'm going to say 1, right? That's what we talked about. And then introduce local variable. What the, okay.
Index number.
Second. Okay. Okay, so then if we do that, and we have that split it there, obviously this is the result of that. Okay, let's see what's the deal here. Remove local variable, split it. Okay, it's not, okay, let me just give it a nice name, right? Get only numbers, let's say, right? So this is a better name in this case. So now that I have this, I can say, if I want the first one, string number is equal to this guy dot, no, not this guy, and then I can say 1, right? That's what I can say, and that's it. So now if I print this same thing, and I'm going to do multiple printing so you guys can see, and then we run it now real quick. Okay, so now notice that it's only returning this, right? Before it was this, because we have 2 printout, right? One print for just the result by itself. And the other printout is that we are splitting in wherever we see space, and then we want the second one, second item. So that's what's the second item. The next thing I can do is that after splitting, I can remove something. I can say, we can dot replace. I can use the replace to do something. I can say replace any, comma with nothing, okay? And that's what I can say. So now notice this number is going to turn out to be something different. So I'm going to go ahead and run it and see like how it looks like. Okay, and it probably ran. So notice like how you got a nice plain number, right? So now that we have this nice plain number, we have to still convert that into an integer or double. Integer is not an option because it's not enough. It's a lot of zeros, right? And we talked about the limitation. So I can convert this into double. And I can say that number is equal to, so basically, okay, the result in number num is equal to, I have to say in integer. So I'm converting this into, sorry, not integer, my bad, double dot first double something, I believe. 1 second, I gotta convert into double, right? Java. Okay, so first and double, yeah, this is what I thought. Okay. All right, now Let's just paste it here. Okay, and then I just need the number right there. So we're just going to convert this into actual number. So now you can say assert dot assert true. Okay, and you can say this number has to be more than maybe like one, like how many zeros are in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, right? So I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At least 8 numbers. As long as this is 8 numbers, then pass it. Okay, that's it. That's all I said here. So these are highly available keywords. So we just want to make sure that it is looking for at least like 8 million before it says it passed. At least 8 million search results. So I think it passed already. Yeah, it's done. So notice that it was done, right? So so we just validating to make sure that this result has to be more than, and we had to make sure that it converted properly. We had to make sure that we did some cleanup to make sure that we are getting numbers only and then replace commas and things like that. Is because it does come with other characters that we don't need. We're grabbing it from UI. So obviously that is totally expected. So if you say 1,000, if it's more than 1,000, then yes, the result is there. Then we are kind of safe. We're in the safe zone. That means this step will work for anything as long as it has a result. Do you guys agree or not? No, not agreed.
What did you say?
I said if, so we did MacBook, right?
Yeah.
Now so my question was if this step will work for anything that has more than 1,000 results, right? Anything. It's not tied to a specific, it's not tied to MacBook itself. I can search for iPhones.
Yeah.
And then iPhone probably going to give us even like a huge number in terms of search result, and it will still work. So let's see real quick. Okay, and it worked. Now it says the next scenario. Let's look at the next scenario that we supposed to make. And the next scenario says that verify if user search a keyword that does not have an index within Google and it should not show any results. So we're gonna, can anybody stop me to copy this? No, right? I can just copy this, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna put all it's different is that this keyword is highly available and I just need to come up with a keyword that is not available anywhere in Google. So if I do this, do you think it will be available in Google? I don't think so, right? Because nobody's going to be foolish enough to create something with this kind of names, right? Okay. So now that we have this keyword, all I have to do, everything else is fine. I should say I should see a result, and I'm going to create another one saying I should not see a result. So I'm going to copy the whole thing. And I'm going to say I should not see a result. And all I have to do is should not, also I have to fix this. Okay, and all I have to do is just true less than 1,000. I'm gonna say result should be less than or equal to 0. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so I should say should not, and that's it. Done. So I'm gonna run this. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back. Go ahead and run it real quick and see the results, what's going on here. Boom. Okay, and then the test pass, right? The test pass. Should the test fail? You see, notice like it printing 0. It did take, we did leave the logs, right? Where we console logged it. We basically system out println. So we can see what's going on behind the scene. But notice this test is passing. So is this test is gonna pass too, right? all I did is just one simple step was done. So notice like how much easier your life becomes when it comes about writing this automated test. But most importantly, the automation needs to be maintainable, and that's why reusability is so much encouraged. So now what if you want to do this thing right here? Okay, the next one is that we want to do more than one. I'll go ahead and copy the whole thing. Actually, I'm going to copy this whole thing and I'm going to paste it in here. So this one is positive. So we want to do 1000 keywords, and the keywords obviously is going to be coming from my table. And so now I'm saying anything that I search, if as long as it has a, you know, as long as it have 1000, you know what I'm saying? Like 1000 results, we're good to go, right? So I can say anything, cancel, pen, whatever, like any keyword. So now I can actually get this keywords from maybe the requirements, whatever is the case. I can say, like soccer, something like that, you know, whatever you want. So if I run this test right now, how many times it'll run? Right, it will run each row is going to run once, right? So I can go ahead and run this. Let me just go ahead and put those two to comment it out, and then go ahead and just run this real quick. So assume I didn't put, obviously, if I want to type this 1000, you know, keyword, it's going to take me time. So just assume this is 1000 at this point, and then we will. Okay, Apple, it has results right there. See, it passed. The next one is what? Orange, maybe spelling mistakes, but still worked. Cars right there, it still worked. Okay, and then it will do the same thing for other stuff. All right. And then it's going to continue to do that for each and every single, this is soccer, and each and every single thing that it says. So notice like this 5 scenario and all 5 passed. Now, the question to you guys, do you think the Google engineers, they will do any different than what we did, right? The obvious answer is going to be yes, they might just write more efficient code, but then the idea is same. They're going to test it in this manner, where they may have 1000 keywords that comes from a CSV or maybe Excel sheet, and they're going to read it from there and then run it, right? So that way it's easier. Imagine I have to type the 1000 keywords here, it's going to be a long time. So it's easier to just get it from an Excel sheet. So we'll have to add Excel sheet to the framework. And how do we do that? Right? The framework need to be able to read and write an Excel sheet. All you have to do is found.xml, go and add your Excel sheet reader, and that's all you have to do. Very, very simple. So whenever we create a framework, you add things that you need. So if I was to read this from Excel sheet, I would add it here to make sure that we have the capability to be able to read Excel and write Excel from this framework. So in this case, we wrote 3 test cases that probably something as of right now Google can use, right? Google can actually get benefited from these test cases is because not only that we're doing a positive, we're doing negative testing, and we have this one, like I can actually now create a negative group of test cases as well, right? I can just now take this and I can say should not see a result, and I should verify if user can search for keyword and do not get result, do not get result, because it's going to be negative. So now I'm going to type some nonsense. Okay, like this is 1. This is the second one, right? Okay, so you're just pushing the limit to Google, you know, website to see what's happening. So not only that we have a single test for a happy path, this is called positive scenario, and then we have a negative scenario, but we also have a positive scenario in bulk, right? That means we can do multiple keywords using this scenario, And then we have the negative scenario. We can do multiple scenarios as well. So if I run the entire feature right now, what you will see, okay, I gotta remove some of this. Okay, let's see what's happening, right? Once this is done, then we'll take the Q&A and then maybe go over some of your homework that you did. But I think, yeah, if you go back to the video, you'll be able to actually do this. The other thing that you can probably also do, I have a video on YouTube where I'm showing 15 minutes if you can create a framework using Cucumber. So if you don't want to spend a lot of time, you can Google, sorry, you can YouTube write 15 minutes Cucumber, and you should be able to find my video, the first one on the list. Okay, so it's running all of them. I see like your test is pretty much happy and healthy, and it's running, and it is not failing because of some unknown reasons, right? Okay, so how many people think you can actually write this on your own after looking at this? Anybody here think that they cannot? Because what is different here? The only thing is different is the feature, right? After that, if you go inside, it's the same thing. The code is still the same, the way that we have been writing. So you see, this is public void, we're creating a method. So it is not any different.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So for multiple scenarios, we are writing all of our code in test definition file, right? Or the test app. So how do we have to write all the code in this file, like for multiple feature?
No. You can separate them out. So like in the step definition, you can create another folder and you can put them, you can create another, step def. It doesn't have to be the same. Ideally at workplace, you're gonna see for homepage, they create one class. This is a class, right? So for homepage, there will be one class for, a dashboard page. So each page will have their own class where you will keep those in a order way. So that way it's easier for anybody to go and look into and say, okay, I'm dealing with homepage. That means I should be going at the homepage class, right? And that is the page object pattern that you will be using at work as well. So if you notice this guy, this has a result, so it should fail. I am surprised this has a result. Somehow it has 8 result. So now one of our tests is gonna fail. So be ready to see it. So you see this one failed already. It's going into the next one. So 1 or 2 tests is gonna fail. If it does have more than 0, it will fail. We should have said at least less than 10 or something, or yeah, maybe give 10 as a wiggle room, but that's the way. So if I was hired for Google and they ask me, check the search engine if it's working properly, I would go into the database and find keyword, maybe thousands of keywords, right? That people are using to search. And I would take them and I would basically create my expected result that I would want to see, 90 million records for this keyword and so on. So I would create my expected, and then I would write my test to say, okay, go and use each and every single keyword that I have in this Excel sheet. And then to also expect the value to be more than this value that I am already, expecting for that keyword, right? So I would do it that way, but most importantly, the idea is that if you want to see if search engine works properly, you cannot simply just do one keyword and say, okay, it's working. You have to come up with a probability, right? You have to think about, let's say you have 1 million keywords and you ran them. It took you half a day, and then out of 1 million, only like 2% failure took place. That means you're pretty successful, right? There will be a room for failure because it's not because a search engine is not working. It's just because that there will be some keywords where unpredictable result will happen. For example, one keyword that you didn't expect to see more than 0, that keyword somehow somebody is using to create a website, and now you have a result, right? So there are some unexpected situations that you want to combat by using probability and percentage-based answer, percentage-based result on your automation. But the other thing you can be done also in this case is that you will be able to go and take highly searched keyword by Google search, put them into an array, and then start using them to search itself instead of using an Excel sheet, right? So that's going to be another way for you to leverage Google itself to do the testing itself, right? But many ideas, right? Obviously, I'm sure they're doing something really, really crazy to do this. Now, if I was to test the search engine, I wouldn't even use the UI to begin with. I wouldn't even use the UI. I would just send the request directly, right? How do I know the request? I can just go ahead and we're gonna basically talk about this as, after we finish with the automation, because that is something that you will be asked in the interview as well, and that is called API testing. So whenever you do something, let's say search network, and you do something like this, and now it basically, sends a request to the server to get this information. So notice it did send a request and it got nothing back. So if I go to the response, you see, it just gave me nothing actually. So this is just the, let's see, if it's the right one. Okay, let me just go into fetch. Okay, this is the one, search query. And then if I try to search with this, but then if I look at the response, I got nothing, right? This is where it gave me nothing actually, right? For this query is right there. So I would totally use this step, right? I can actually like take this. Let's see if I have Postman actually. Post. No, I don't have Postman. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it from online for now. I'll show you guys something different. So I don't really need the so web Postman, let's see, it's pretty slow, but I don't really need the UI at all if I want to test, right? I can actually just go ahead and use simply API calls and just do it that way, and it would be faster. That means API calls is faster than UI. So that means I can send hundreds of requests within per second. Every second I can send hundreds and hundreds and hundred keyword to test. So I can finish like 1 million keywords within half a day. But if I was to do it through UI, it'll maybe take a month, right? That's how fast API is. So we'll talk about this API testing later. This is the tool that you're gonna learn, right? Postman, when we finish the UI testing first. All right. Now, I want to give you guys too much, right? Otherwise, you might be able to, you'll probably get confused. So now that we have a little bit of time, I'm going to give you guys a break for until 10. When we come back, you're going to open your framework and we're going to convert that into Cucumber. How's that sound?
That's good. Sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay. All right. So I'll see you guys exactly at 10. Okay. And this way we'll finish it fast, right? So the first question is, how many people here is going to do it now versus, because some of you guys may be joining from work or whatever is the case. So just raise your hand if you're going to take your previous framework and add Cucumber to it and write your first test. Just put your hands up on the comment, on the reaction, Zoom reaction. Nobody. Okay, everybody's back, right? Is everyone back?
Yeah.
Yes, back.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, let's say, okay, I'll give you guys a choice. We can go to each computer, right? and share your screen, and then we can do this, or we can just go to the interview questions, and I'll leave it up to you. You want to do the interview questions, or you want to do this because you're
Interview.
not? Okay. All right. So that means you're going to be able to do this on your own, right? Later on. By watching the video.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and
Okay.
start from the beginning.
Okay.
I'm
Okay,
lost.
that's fine. Okay, that's fine. So, all right. So let me give you guys some tips and tricks from the real experience, right? And I'm not talking about like working experience. I'm talking about interview and seeing you guys over the years taking interview and kind of correcting and coming up with my own feedback to make sure that you can improve your interview skills. So let's talk about that. And I'm not even talking about how you speak, clarifications in terms of slow, and fast, or whatever is the case. I'm talking more about the knowledge side. So the first thing first, we know that let's see the probability, or at least the percentage of automation versus manual. So manual test cases or manual testing in general is going to be like at least 50%. And this is going to be where you get the talking point, right? This is where you can talk as much as you want, and you can talk about the best practices. You can talk about how you are able to come up with the, scenarios and why you are specifically different than another QA person. What makes you different, right? Are you a critical thinker? Are you somebody who has patience? Are you somebody who actually reads the instruction and then come up with the solution? So this is where you can make that difference, right? Top of that, you should be very much familiar with STLC, which is kind of like everything, right? For you to complete a task on the QA side. So SDLC is something that you should be very much familiar with. SDLC is another one. SDLC is like they assume that you already know it. So it's like they might not ask questions, but then your talking point is going to be missing if you don't know what SDLC is, because SDLC is where you cannot explain a lot because you don't know what SDLC is. So just keep in mind. Then when it comes about Selenium, it could be like another 50% automation and Selenium related questions. So the last class we did the first 15, and I'm going to pull those up 1 second. In the meantime, and we're going to just explain. And the reason why I explain and I don't want you guys to memorize them is because it's a very logical. The questions are more logical, like really what happens throughout the whole process and being in a team and what kind of work do you do. These are very much logical. And let's see, let's pull that up.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Are we gonna do QA like interviews or developer interviews?
You guys are gonna do QA interviews, but there are a few positions that we also have some abilities to place you guys on, and one of the position is a junior developer, and not everybody's gonna get this, and so the junior position is typically I place people who's more interested to become a developer at some point, but also for those who it's really didn't get any interviews for some reason. They're not getting interviews for some reason. They're they need an immediate job for them to be able to stay. At least they need a source of income. So that's when I kind of help with a developer job, because it's instant. We're able to place people instantly. It takes about 2 weeks when they're ready. And we already kind of know the questions and answer what they kind of ask, because we've been working with them for so long. So we know exactly what they're looking for. So we're able to prepare you on that regard. So failing the interview is kind of like out of the question if you really have time and kind of follow our instruction. So that's why, like, that position, we give it to people who really, really need, like, for some reason, let's say they don't have a job and they just want to do that for 6 months until they want to jump into QA, you know?
Okay.
But after all, what I have been seeing is that they do come back to QA, right? They come back to QA if once they feel comfortable and they have a paycheck and they feel like, okay, now I have time to go back to QA, or sometimes they get back to QA while they're working. And some people actually keep both jobs somehow, because as a developer, they don't really have exception or any sort of like issue you working on second job as long as you can do the job, right? Okay, let me see. So some companies are nice about it. You know, you can actually open up and say, I'm doing a second job, and they'll probably allow you to, but it's better not to even ask. Unless your contract says you cannot work second job, that's when you cannot, right? Otherwise, it's better not to tell them, because then they will find a ways to make you feel bad, like, oh, were you busy? Or, you know, now then they know that you have two jobs. So let's say one, you know, let's say in Evelina's case, right? She's an agent for, let's say, you know, a insurance company. So she can keep both jobs. It's totally fine. But then if I'm a boss and because these both job doesn't interfere with each other, it's not the same line of business, right? Because if she works for Geico and then she works for Allstate, that's where the problem is, right? So now, let's say one job is part-time, whatever is the case, but then she goes and says, hey, I want to make sure that you guys know I do have another job. And now the manager is going to come up with different assumptions, right? He can kind of like discriminate to say, okay, you know, because you're doing the second job, you're not able to finish this, you know, and things like that. So yes, you know, sometimes it's good to keep it to yourself. But yeah, like look into your contract. Everybody's going to get their contracts, or at least the initial paperwork where it's going to clearly say if you can keep a part-time job or not. But most likely they don't care, right? Most likely it will say that you can, right? If you have a part-time job. Where is the table of content? 1 second, sorry. Page break, page number, table of content. There we go. All right. Selection. Let me see if I can. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, selection, entire document. Header. Okay. I'm using Pages. I'm used to like Word document, so it's just let's see. Okay, we didn't pay table of content for now. We'll just keep that. Okay. So last time we did up to, I believe, up to here, test cases. So now what is a test strategy? I think we did that already. Quality audit, we remember being up to here. Okay. So what are some tools? Obviously, this is not it. We're going to talk about way more tools than this. Explain stress testing, load testing, and volume testing. Okay. So load testing is basically under heavy expected load, right? So you're putting a lot of the users, large volume users, messages, requests, and then stress testing is when the load placed in the system is raised or accelerate rate beyond the normal, you know, range, right? So you're putting enough stress to the application to see what is the handle of the application. And then you have volume testing. Volume testing is basically checking the system, whether the system can handle required amount of data, user requests, etc. So in a way, all three has a very much similar situation, right? But all you have to know is that these are separate positions, right? This is a performance engineer's job. And if they do ask you this kind of question, you can say, well, I did a very little performance, you know, testing, so I am not comfortable answering this question because I didn't do any performance testing lately in my current project. So you can actually tell them that, and it's absolutely fine, because they typically have a separate person or department for performance testing. Okay. What are the 5 common solutions for software development problem? I don't think they will ask this, so let's go into that. What is a use case and what does it include? Okay, who wants to
I'm
read
so
this?
sorry. You're gonna send these to us, right?
I will actually send you more than this because we have over the years we have documentation for interview related that is not on Google or anywhere. So this came from Google, right? It's just common questions. But over the years, we also have questions and answers that we personally wrote. I'm going to give those to you guys as well as part of your interview prep. Let's see.
Okay,
The other
thank you.
thing, yeah, no problem. I'll tell you guys my story. Okay, let's see, let me just open it up real quick before I can even tell you a story. Okay, let's see if it exists. Question.net. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. That's why I was like, let me just first see if it's even available. Give a question. Yeah, this is what happens. People don't maintain the website. Okay, QA. Okay, let's see Google. Maybe they changed the domain. QA questions. This is like literally the second search, like second highest search for QA questions, and I would be surprised to see that they didn't maintain the website. So let's see. Goodness, wow. Okay. No. Yeah, this is really, they could have. Okay. Yeah, so I was gonna show you guys something that I did when I was in the market. So this website, now that it's no longer exists, but this website had 90, I think 98 or 97 questions. I think I have them saved, so I will be able to share with you guys. But this website had this 98 or 97 type of questions, and they're like really relevant to the actual work experience. So you can talk more, right, about the process and how you will handle certain situation at work, right? So this is helpful. You don't have to memorize it because everything is a story there, like meaning the guy just basically explained in a way that you can just read, and then later you'll be able to rephrase that answer to somebody else to explain, right, what you have done in these kind of situations. So we can go over that. I'll find those questions and give it to you guys. Now the use case, right? Question number 19, what is a use case and what does it include? So use case is kind of like a requirement. Think about two-part use case. You wanna describe how the user will use the application in this case. And it is described in a way, it's written what is the user is doing and what is the system is responding to that user action, right? So the definition is in here. The document that describes the user action and system response for a particular functionality is known as use case. Okay, so it is not too far from even scenario, I would say, but this is more on the requirement side. So if you do happen to get use case from your BA or from the team for you to write test cases, it's going to be a lot of copy pasting because it's going to be very, very similar. So you will not have to come up with these things yourself if you do happen to get use case. And then you have acceptance criteria is another kind of requirement. So it really depends who is the BA in your team and what kind of format they follow, right? So requirement have many formats. One is, again, use case. You got the user story. You got the acceptance criteria. You have also business requirement document. You have the system requirement document. You have BRD. So these are some form of requirement. At the end of the day, these documents will tell you what you need to test, period, right? You just have the details on what is the expected result when certain things that you carry on. So as a user, what kind of things that you'll be doing and what is the system response based off of those actions that you'll be doing. So what is a CRUD testing and how to test. So anytime, you know, you are doing any sort of testing, you know, especially like for the CRUD, right? It's more on the backend side, but also that exists in front end. It just helps you to understand what CRUD means. It just create, read, update, and delete. So in the database, you can do CRUD all day long, right? You can actually create a record, you can read a record, you can update a record, and you can delete a record, right? So the idea is that what happens if you do these actions and if the system is handling that properly, and that can be happening on the UI side. You can actually test that on the UI side and delete something and then see what happens. You can also create a new thing and see what happens. You can update existing item and see what happens and delete. So this is like just going to help you create more. I guess this, if you really think about CRUD, right? It's going to help you think about coming up with scenarios to test at this point. Okay, so just remember what CRUD means: create, read, update, and delete. Okay. I'm going to skip some questions because I feel like these are not relevant to your situation. So if you do happen to go out there, look for a job, you might not be asked those questions. So somebody read this. What is ad hoc testing? And then I'll explain to you guys.
It is a testing phase where the tester tries to break the system by randomly trying the system functionality. It can include negative testing as well. Oh, I just read it. Can anybody hear me?
Yep, sorry, I was muted and talking to myself. Okay. So I said, I guess like my question is, let's say it's your first dev sprint, right? You guys know what sprint is already. So on your first day of the sprint, usually there's not a lot of work, and you go to the stand-up meeting and everybody's there and they're talking about things and you have nothing to say because you forgot to write it down what you're going to say, right? Like what you did yesterday and things like that. You don't have something coming up in your mind. Is it valid for you to say, well, you know, yesterday I did ad hoc testing and today I'm going to continue to do ad hoc testing until I have something to work with and I have no blocker? So who can explain what happens in a stand-up meeting?
Basically, in stand-up meeting, we talk about 3 questions: what we did yesterday, what is the plan for today, or is there any blocker for the work?
Okay, so now on a stand-up meeting, yesterday I was just filling around. I didn't do any work because I was just like maybe like going on websites and searching for something to buy in Macy's, whatever is the case, right? I'm at work. I just didn't feel like working yesterday. Didn't do anything at all. I was just completely like slacking, let's say, right? Now this morning I go to the meeting and then they go ahead and ask me, okay, what's your update? And you go like, well, yesterday I did a lot of ad hoc testing. I just wanted to see if there's any bugs that can be found with random testing. You know, it's been, I would say I have to do a lot more in order to get to that kind of discovery, but I will continue to do that testing today. In the meantime, I'm waiting for any assignments that is ready. And I can see the developers are not finished with their, you know, story yet. So I'm just going to wait for them. And in the meantime, I'll just do ad hoc testing. You see what I'm saying? Like it does kind of make sense, right? You're just trying to break the system with the random testing at this point. Instead of saying, well, yesterday, I don't know, I had nothing. So I will just go ahead and I was just looking around. I waited and I did nothing. And, you know, it just doesn't sound good, right? Because first of all, you don't want extra work. Like imagine like if you say, I don't have anything, then they'll find you something to do. They'll put some work from other team. While you're waiting for that, you can go and certainly do some ad hoc testing if you want to, right? And that's going to give you familiarity of the application, but most importantly, it will lead to find or discover a new bug, right? That's one thing. The second thing is that it's one way for you to say, I don't want to do anything extra, but I want to just go into the app and just mess around to find something, right? And that's it, right? So you can use that as a, you know, daily status update. If you feel like you are caught off guard and you were just asked all of a sudden some questions and you just be like, oh, I don't remember what I did yesterday. So just go ahead and say ad hoc testing and it will still be fine. Some people actually, and you'll be surprised, some people actually don't know what ad hoc testing is, and that could be, you know, BA, that could be even like developer, because they don't have to deal with testing, right? So they don't know. It's obvious. The other way is you can say, oh, I was doing exploratory testing, or I was just doing some random testing. So it's kind of like, you know, it's really how you want to sell it to them. Okay, so then let's go into the next thing. And this is something that I just mentioned, is because sometimes you do get caught off guard during the stand-up meeting. Maybe you just rushed in, maybe you just woke up late, whatever is the case, then just, you know, this will save you, this kind of testing will save you a little bit of time. You know, you'll just be like completely frozen. What did I do yesterday? And it happens. I've seen over and over again, people just come to the meeting and be like, what did I do yesterday? Well, can you guys come back to me later in like a few minutes? I just can't think of it right now. And I'm saying, so that's really, really bad. That just shows that, okay, you don't even remember what you did yesterday for work. Okay. 24. The list out the role of software quality assurance engineer. So now again, these are some of the responsibilities that you will be doing. As a software quality assurance engineer, tasks may include the following things among others. Writing source code, right? That's one thing. So we have been practicing and writing source codes for quite some time now, right? It's been like, I believe 5 or 6 weeks. Software design, you will participate on the software design and then give them feedback in terms of improvement. So you can say, I don't like this because it doesn't look good, or whatever is the case. So as a QA, you do have the ability to tell them what's your assessment on the design. Also, control of source code, you can also you know, work on that as well. So to make sure that, you know, whenever there is release and things like that, you are doing proper testing before it can be done. So you can actually some way to control of that. Review code, you can actually review your coworkers' code whenever they're ready to push. But most importantly, you can review, somebody else can review yours. So it's almost like review each other code. You're not going to review a developer's code because their code is something that you will probably not understand. And obviously they're writing code for a completely different purpose. So their code is like, has to be in the next level, right? Our code can have a little bit of, you know, room for, you know, how do I say this? Obviously, we don't want to have code that is not efficient, but we do have a little bit of room to have inefficient code as long as it works, okay? You can tell them, I tried other ways, it didn't work, and this is the only way it works, so I implemented it, right? So there is a room for it. But if this was an application, this was for actual app, web app, or whatever is the case, it's not acceptable. Like anything goes into an actual application code, it is not acceptable. But because we're writing the testing code, there is a little bit of room for that kind of, you know, changes. Change management is another one where, you know, even QA has their process and there's different hierarchies within. And whenever things like, let's say, a change request comes in, like let's say a user story you found that is not, you know, relevant to what needs to be done, and you come up with the ways to make that change, you'll be able to, you know, bring it up and can work with the entire team to make some sort of changes to the user story. You can also work with BA, you can work with product owner and so, right? Configuration management is another one. So anytime, and again, this can be on the application side. So I feel like these things are confusing you, but these are more like, I would say these are more for the QA engineer side, and as well as maybe like QA lead side, right? So it's okay, not everybody's going to be a QA lead here. Program testing as well as release management process. So that means if tomorrow is a release, whatever needs to be done, you gotta basically follow up and see what is outstanding in order for you to have a green light for the release. Okay. Okay, this is explain what is bug triage. Okay, this is a good question. So what happens to all the bugs that everybody finds? And it's gonna be shocking that you will almost find 10, 15, 20 bugs per sprint. Every 2 weeks you're finding 10, 15. That's shocking, right? It's a lot of bugs. So explain what happens on a bug triage. A bug triage is a process to ensure bug report is completeness, meaning if the bug actually have all the information that they need before it goes out. Assign and analyze the bug. That means if they have any question, they will ask, but most importantly, that will be assigned to a developer at that point. So it could be every 2 weeks where you sit down with your whole team and go over each and every single bug to make sure they have the proper information. And we talked about also how to create a bug, right? And we create a bug in Jira as well. So each bug you will be explaining. So whoever actually created the bug will explain what really happens and what's the expected result and so on, including your live demo. And then based on the priority and severity, it'll be assigned to a developer, and then it can be further analyzed to make sure that that bug is not causing any other any sort of issues in any other areas of the application or any other related matter for that specific bug. Assigning the bug to a proper bug owner, then you have adjust the bug severity properly, obviously, and then you have the set appropriate bug priority. So these things are done to make sure that the bug has everything, absolutely everything, and so that way somebody can work on it and go ahead and give it to you as a tester so that we can retest and close. Now, why is there important? I guess like this is the question for me to ask you: severity and priority. Why they are so important in a bug? Who can answer that?
I would say because it could mess with the ROI. I think that's why it would be a priority.
Severity and priority. So let's say, and what do you mean by ROI? Is it you're talking about the amount of money they're spending on QA versus what they're getting back?
No. What I'm saying is, if there's a problem and this bug can affect possibly how much money they could potentially make back, obviously that's a priority.
Right. So that could be one. The other thing is, what if it doesn't? Let's say the application really doesn't block anybody, right? User can still perform their work, but then it kind of annoys them, right? It kind of annoys them in a way that like, oh, I have to do this extra step and this extra process, right? That could be a high priority bug too, because as a user, you will start to create bad reviews and things like that. Or like, oh my God, I can't stand this. This is so painful, and so on, right? So as a QA, you're gonna have to make those judgments based on putting the shoes of the end user. You're gonna think like an end user and say, okay, if I was that user and paying for this service, how would I react to this kind of changes? And then you will think about severity and priority. So sometimes you can have situations where a bug is less severe, very low severity, but high priority. It's a high priority bug. Generally, high severity is equal to high priority bug, right? Because it's severe. It might not have any workaround for the users to follow, right? Blocking users and things like that. But then we also have severity that is such a low, meaning it doesn't really affect anyone. Everybody can work the way they have been working in the application. But then it's high priority because it's a company image. It doesn't make the company look good to the outside world. That could be logo. For example, all of a sudden, your Geico, let's see how the Geico logo looks. So for example, you're testing this application and you go into that app and then you realize Geico is red. The word Geico is no longer this specific color. It's not harming anybody. Customer can still go and do whatever they need to do. But then this becomes a very low severity because it's not doing anything to the application. It's not causing any issues. So it's less severe. But then it's high priority because that could be a false sense of understanding, right? The end user can think like, okay, red means I did something wrong as a user, and now they are calling customer service. Oh, my Geico, logo is red after I log in. What's going on? Did I miss any payment? Whatever is the case, right? And now customer service calming them down for 10, 15 minutes and saying sorry and all that stuff. Now imagine like 50,000 calls goes in for that 2 or 3 hours, right? Because Geico has a lot of customers. That's a lot of money spent already that a QA could have prevent from being spent because somebody has to pay for their hours, right? The customer service people. So just keep that in mind. So you can have a bug that is very low severity, but then it is high priority because of company image, right? It can also affect a company's, share market because something really looks, maybe it's missing the logo or something, right? Now, all of a sudden people think Geico is becoming, selling himself to something else or selling themselves to another company or something. And they can make different assumptions and start selling out the stocks, right? So it's really, really, depends on how the image will be to the public, but also the review too. There are websites where you can review companies based on your experience. So all of that matters, and you have to think like an actual user to say, okay, how would I feel in this case? And then you have to say, okay, is this acceptable or is it not acceptable? And then also if this bug is going to be high or low priority. But typically high severity is automatically a high priority. But then you do have cases where very low severity, but then high priority. Okay, so then list out various tools. So again, like this is something that we will talk about because this is going to be in your resume. So just keep in mind, you're going to get the resume. You will get some sort of, understanding of what's in the resume, right? So if I was to like show you somebody else's resume today, let me just go into one. I'm going to pull up something, maybe from my Finder, and then kind of like go over the resume. Let's see. No, just have to go to my email. So the reason why I'm showing you a resume because it's not your typical resume that, sometimes people say one pager, right? When you go to college and you go to, let's say, career, some career coach or whoever you're talking to about the resume, who's expert on resume, they will say, oh, it's a one page. You have to make sure it's one page and this and that. In our case, it's not going to be one page. If anything, I'll try to keep it, close to 3 pages, is because we have to include all the keywords and description of what we have been learning and tools we have been dealing with, is because when they pick resumes, they actually use keyword search, and they automatically pick resumes that has the right keywords. So we have to make sure that we represent it well enough so that way resume gets picked. And then when it comes to about the interview, we will then, prep in a way that we can actually pass the interview. So just keep that in mind. And then obviously every resume that you will get, it does come with some sort of, let's see if I can pull up something. Okay, so I did get a, so let's look at the sample resume. Hopefully it doesn't have any name, but if it does, it's okay. All right, so you get one, which is your resume script, and the other one is the resume itself. So let's say this is your resume, right? The sample, over 6 years of experience, blah, 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 blah. And it's talk about literally everything that we have been, dealing with. So, and not only that we have been dealing with, but some things that we haven't been dealing with. Now, what's your responsibility when you get this kind of resume? Your responsibility is to do as much as research as possible to make sure that at least you know some surface level information. Just because you have all these doesn't mean you're an expert on everything, right? As long as you know what they are, you can say my career focus was more on the Selenium, Java, Cucumber, as well as Jira, but everything else, right? So if they say like, okay, what is an SVN, right? You can say, well, SVN is something that I have been using in the very early stage of my career, and I no longer use that, right? So I'm not too confident about answering any question on SVN, but SVN is a version control tool, right? So I'm going to teach you guys these two also toward the end of the automation, because we have to push our code, right? But just like that, not everything that you have listed on your skills right here, you have to be a master on those, right? So look, you got Selenium in different version. You got the IDE, you have Maven, you got JUnit, TestNG, you got the JMeter, and you've got the, what else, Cucumber, and that's it. Everything else is like only one or two that you haven't done yet, just one or two. Language wise, we're going to have Java, and then we have SQL. We're going to teach you that. HTML and CSS, I already showed you guys how it looks like, but it doesn't mean you're going to be an expert on SQL and CSS. You don't have to be, because you're not a front-end developer. But why is that in your resume? Is because you dealt with it. You actually have tested application that was built with these technologies, right? So it is totally valid. Similar to that, we have QA methodologies, Agile and Waterfall, both we covered it, right? So I may remove the B model, right? It's not a problem. So Agile and Waterfall, as long as you are confident, you're good to go. Bug tracking, you have Jira, where we created a bug in Jira, right? Now, somehow, obviously, this tool I'm going to remove, but if this is still there, you can still say I used Bugzilla, because the difference between Jira and Bugzilla, it's not going to be huge, because if you're writing a bug with a standard format, it has to follow the same, right? Your bug needs to have description, title, it needs to have expected result, actual result, and things like that. So these both technology and both tool will have a similar outcome. So if you know Jira, you know this, okay? You have database, right? So obviously database is gonna have its own 2x class on database, right? So that way you feel okay about this database and tools. So we're not gonna go into that right now, but then you have IntelliJ, that's it. These you can remove, it's not a problem. You don't have to have these. Eclipse, I don't, I mean, if you used it, that's fine, but Eclipse and IntelliJ, they're almost identical at this point. So if you know IntelliJ, then you might also say that you know Eclipse, but you can have personal experience by going and writing the same exact framework in Eclipse. These things, I'm going to give you guys a very brief introduction. Obviously, everybody here knows Mac and Linux, so sorry, Mac and Windows. And if you know Mac, then that means you also know Linux and Unix, so it should be fine. And these two I'm going to teach you guys. So notice all of the key skill sets that is going to be in your resume is covered. It is covered. We are like almost like 80% of the way already. Okay, just keep that in mind, 80% of the way. That's one thing. Second thing is, if you look into this, so this person, let's say, worked in PNC Bank, and they were a QA analyst / SDET. That means they were QA analyst, probably started as a QA analyst and became SDET, which is software test engineer, right? If you look at the description, it's nothing more than what we have been telling you about Agile's, what you actually do at work. If you read the first, okay, let's read this together, right? The first line, proficient knowledge of all stages of software development lifecycle, SDLC, okay? And software testing lifecycle, SDLC, using Scrum software development methodology in Agile, okay? Anything strange about this? Anything that you didn't do about this line? Anybody, come on, just tell me that I don't understand what you're saying in this line. This is true. This is true that you have this by now. already. Okay, so prove, like, just tell me if I'm wrong. It's totally fine. I'm okay to cover this again, if anything. But SDLC and SDLC, we covered it extensively, and I asked you guys question all the time about SDLC. Okay, then let's go into the second line. Determined testing requirement, developed and reviewed script for positive and negative test scenarios, and conducted baseline testing and generated a report. What is different about that? You just like earlier, we asked the question about coming up with different scenario. That's exactly what you did. You came up with negative and positive scenario, and then you did the testing. Baseline means basically you're comparing yesterday, whatever the result was yesterday versus today. So you have a baseline to go off of and say, okay, this is normal. And tomorrow, if I test it and if I don't see this, that means it's not normal. And then you will raise the bug or issues, right? So it's nothing crazy. It's gonna be in your resume. Remember, it's gonna be as easy as we can put. And so a lot of the interview questions and answers is gonna be directly on your resume. So the important thing is that you need to be able to understand what's in there, and be able to make some progress, to say, okay, this is my resume, whatever is the case. So now for this specific resume, we have a script. Let's look at the script. And this script is not for share. This script you cannot share with, recruiter or anything, or anybody else, because this is your script. It's personalized, meaning if you have a resume, we look at the resume when we try to write down the best possible answer for these questions. So for example, tell me about yourself. So for this resume, we have a tell me about yourself in a way that you can actually sound like a QA expert to say what you have done, right? So if I have to read this, for example, and somebody asks me a question, tell me about yourself, I can say I have been working as a QA for over 6 years, and I have experience in both manual automation testing for both mobile and web. My first project was as a QA analyst with Health First, which was more like a junior QA role, where I was involved in testing healthcare application, which is called Autopilot, and web application provided quality level of health services for members. And I have contributed extensively on manual testing, and I was involved in learning automation. So this first paragraph shows that you got into testing industry by doing manual testing, which was your first ever, project. And after that, you went into learning automation from your current team. And that's how you actually made the progress, because no college give you a degree on automation or manual testing, right? It has to somehow come from somewhere. So it could be an internship or it could be a junior role. The reason why you got the junior role is because maybe they believed in you and they hired you and they gave you enough training. So you were able to make some progress and help the team while you were growing professionally. Okay, so just like that, right? Everything has to make sense in your resume, because the person on the other side asking this question, it's not going to be a machine where you just say certain keyword and they just let you go, right? You have to be able to talk to them just like a human being and see if they actually relate to your answers. So now, what if you have to go deeper with each and every single position that you work with? And let's say somebody asks you, what was your project? Now we have some example here. For example, the project was to take legacy underwriting application and redesign using latest technology such as AngularJS. So that could be like a front-end application. They want to make it better, right? And now they're talking about what happened. They're talking about real-time rating for underwriting accurate. So these are some of the feature. Remember feature? Today we learn feature, right? So each one of them is a feature that you have tested. So you can say some of the feature of the application that I have tested is this. I mean, they will not go beyond that, right? So similar to that, but then you tested this, but what was your original responsibility? What was your responsibility? Then you have more information like, okay, so I closely worked with the BA and developers for requirement review. I developed test scenarios, and I have developed and implemented custom framework with test-driven and page object model. I mean, none of these keywords we know, we just heard today. No, we've been actually dealing with those for the last, couple of months, right? we talked about page object, we talked about the Selenium WebDriver, we talked about the data driven, so just like that, what if you have a healthcare industry in your resume? So a little bit about healthcare, right? So the project specific, you will be able to give them exact information about a specific project that you worked in. And it is not going to be simply like, oh, Cigna.com, I worked for that website. It doesn't make sense at all. It has to be, like internal. It has to be like something that they were building a product, So for example, in this case, so I was involved in testing 2 projects, ICD-10 and then dental on FedEx, on Facets. Facets is like a CRM application, and ICD-10 is like, think about illness, right? For example, cancer. They don't call it cancer. It is a coded. Every kind of illness out there is coded, so that way it complies with HIPAA, and therefore people don't know what kind of illness you have when you go out there and look for medication or pick up your medication from the from a pharmacy, and things like that. And a lot of privacy is around that. HIPAA is really, really top of that. So in order to comply with HIPAA and things like that, ICD-10 is one way for them to hide obvious information about illnesses and things like that, right? So that's why it'll be coded. It's always going to be like, okay, 230, whatever, right? Some sort of code, and it means this person has this disease or whatever is the case. So similar to that, you have even project description for healthcare or another healthcare where you just talk about EDI. EDI is basically, so 837, 835, EDI is mostly used by, healthcare industry to, either pay a caregiver or, to see if somebody's making claims and things like that. All of that has a different language of communication. So EDI 837 transaction is, think about one sort of way to communicate between the person who's receiving care, the person who's giving care, and then also the healthcare industry to say, okay, we're going to pay the person who actually gave care, right? Which could be a doctor, provider, right? So all of that gets taken care of through the internal, system, and the EDI transaction is something that helps to understand who's paying who and who's getting what kind of care and things like that, right? Otherwise, this information would be all over the place, right? Every doctor would have their own record and things like that. So it wouldn't be in the same place, right? Okay, let's see. So then remember Cucumber, we have a huge paragraph written in Cucumber, right? This is something you will not find it in online or Google or anything like that. This is custom written for you guys. Same thing. So any of these questions here, like what is this, tell me about this, Agile Scrum, all of that is written ahead of time. So that way, when you're out there and you're talking to a recruiter, he will be impressed. Most importantly, you're not going to make a fool out of yourself, because after the first week of reading this, it will be in your head. And then you don't need this paper anymore. But then initially in the first week, you're going to need this paper to make sure that you sound like a QA working professional. And that's something that we're going to focus also as a preparation to be out there looking for jobs. So that's a little bit, guys. I think we like way past our time. But like I said, things are coming. I know what I have to do in terms of you guys getting you out there in the market, and I'm going to treat everybody as equal here, right? I'm not going to say that this person is this, but obviously those who are more interested to go out there in the market because they feel like they're ready, I'm going to try to go with those people first. But if you have, let's say, fear, or if you think like, okay, you know what, I need to go next, but I'm not being next and somebody else is being picked, I don't mind picking you, because as long as you're out there and not panicking and kind of making a fool out of yourself, we are okay to put you out there. But again, everybody will go through a formal interview, because when you get your resume, and then when you get a summary script similar to this, where we kind of write this information for you, we're going to ask questions. We're going to ask this question. You have to know what's in your resume. You have to know the technologies in your resume. So that means you're going to Google things. You're going to know what are some of the items in your resume. You know, so you have to get those information, those knowledge before you go up there. Otherwise, you're gonna panic, and you're not gonna do well on the interviews, right? And then also, once you're out there looking for jobs, you cannot learn new things because now you're focused on just setting up the interviews, right? So you'll be talking to a lot of people, and so you will not have a lot of time to learn. Plus you have a job, right? I'm sure most of you guys are working, so it will be very, very hard. Yeah, whoever's resume that I'm showing you guys, he's currently working. I don't know if you guys remember from the last batch, but he's working somewhere right now. He's working on a project where they let him work from India. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, whatever, you know, it's his need, because he's like, oh, you know, I asked my manager if I can work from India, and he said yes. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, it doesn't cost me anything. So he's probably gonna go to India and work, but he started like very recently. Okay, guys, so you have a lot of resources out there, but most importantly, I would say use your time, because when you come back, you know, you can come and tell me like, hey, Joel, listen, I appreciate your classes, but I think I did some of the study on my own and I'm more than ready. So let's work on getting me a job. And I will be, you know, more than happy to do that. I will not take this as like, oh, wow, why would you do that, right? No. I will say, okay, you did most of my work that I was supposed to do. That's great. You know, that is awesome. Now let's talk about marketing. So what that means is that you have the Cucumber, the whole Cucumber Java, along with Java, full course. And I'm talking about end-to-end from the very beginning, assuming you don't know anything. They have a course exactly what I am trying to teach you guys. And it has section by section. It gives you Cucumber basics. It gives you real, you know, and most of you guys probably have access to this, right? And you can download, you know, certain things, right? After watching, right? So if you can finish this, I mean, if you can finish this, this will be, I would say, more than make you ready for the automation side. But for the manual side, what do you need, right? For the manual side, there is another one. So the reason why I'm even showing you guys is because like we have a long break coming, right? So this is the manual testing and this is the automation. So just keep that in mind, note it to your mind or write it down, this one and this one. If you finish these two courses, trust me, you don't even need to finish our courses, because these will probably be enough for you to be able to do your job at work. So if you feel like it's not enough in terms of our homework, just go ahead and do these two and finish it, come back, and we're gonna just go ahead and evaluate and start to help you with marketing process and looking for jobs. But also, like I said, if you have a lot of free time and you feel like you missed a lot of classes in the very early stage, this is something that you wanna do it again, because it's only 2 hours, you know, and then so is this one. With that said, guys, it's almost 11. I will see you guys. I guess I'm gonna send you guys an email or at least a text message on the next classes, but most likely we are not coming back until the new year, right? Because let me see if I can pull up my, okay, there you go. Because now you have 23, 24 is Christmas. When you come back, you're already exhausted, right? And then the new year, obviously you want to go with your friends, family, whatever is the case. Even if you don't celebrate Christmas, still, you will still celebrate in somehow, right? Trust me, you're gonna probably take the days because it's off, so you'll do something else, right? But either way, I don't know about you guys, but I will be celebrating. I will also be celebrating New Year. And, you know, I just don't want to interrupt anything since the New Year is coming for you guys. But when we come back, it will be Okay, so it will be this like the 7th. Okay, when we come back on this day, or at least I'm gonna start to send resumes here and there to you guys. So you'll have, some of you guys will have your resume even before this date. On the 13 or 14, I'm gonna start to put people out there. Those who are interested, only those are who are interested to go and put them out there for jobs. But those who didn't finish and they think they want to finish it, then we will continue the classes until we are ready to go out there. So just keep in mind. Any questions before we finish for the day, guys?
So no class the 27th December, next Tuesday.
Yeah, no class. Yeah, I think like when
Okay,
you come
great.
back from Christmas, it's just, it's just gonna be on your way, right? Because you might
Yeah,
be
no, it
doing
works.
something. Yeah,
Awesome, thank you.
no problem. All right, guys, enjoy your holidays. If I don't talk to you again, have a great Christmas as well as New Year. Enjoy as much as possible, and then just keep in mind when we come back, we may have a new beginning within the February, right? So some of you guys will get a job by February, right? Mid-February or so, assuming that you will be going to the market on the 13th or 14th of January.
Awesome, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good
Thank
night.